Welcome to DynamicsCon 2022. Say hello to my little friend, the super user superhero. Today's session is how to become a documentation superhero in 20 minutes. Did you hear that whooshing sound? That's the super user superhero. He's swooping down to help the beleaguered masses solve their documentation dilemmas. Hi. Hello. Nice to meet you. My name is Christine Eltz, and for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to be your customer success superhero. Actually, I'm a customer success manager with ClickLearn, and I want to just take a moment and shout out to DynamicsCon. Thank you for letting me take this time and make a presentation for all of you that have joined us here today. I'm going to share some of my best tips to help you become the documentation superhero you've always wanted to be. While we will be spending the next 20 minutes together, if you see something that sparks a question, please drop it into the chat or the questions section, and we'll pick up the conversation when we get to the Q&A time. But first, the agenda. Preparation. We're going to talk about helping you to prep your content development. Frequent release cycles. We're going to be working to reduce your anxiety when the release cycles roll around by easily updating your materials. Consistency and versioning. Let's keep a consistent message through all the learning materials you'll create. About different formats for different learning styles. And do you have templates for those different formats? Finally, localization. Translation, globalization, we're going to be thinking globally and acting locally. Superhero, super user, please help us. Let's get into understanding your users, the digital adoption solutions available, what does your content look like, and keeping it simple. So from here, part of your preparation is going to be getting an understanding of the users that will be touching the application you'll be creating materials for. Once you've determined the many different personalities in many different functional areas, it will help you in your first step towards creating the materials. That is, what type of an application will you need to use to create those different formats? If you Google or Bing a digital adoption solution, you'll have about 235 million hits returned in the blink of an eye. Gartner, the well-known technology research and consulting company, recognizes digital adoption solutions as emergent technology, which streamlines user adoption throughout the digital transformation. In a nutshell, a DAS will be a game changer in the way you build your documentation, but it's not going to make it for you. Do you have a roadmap or business use cases, or are you the subject matter expert that will be responsible for identifying the content that needs to be created? Your human intervention in devising the content development list and determining what applications that content will be created with is key. If you're lucky enough to have plenty of time between project kickoff and go live, keep in mind you may need to learn how to use the different applications needed to create the materials needed. The question to ask yourself is, do I have the time and do I want to learn how to use multiple applications to create materials or just one? Initially, start small, keep it simple, and as your creativity grows, so will your expertise in creating a variety of materials for end users to adopt the solution. Frequent release cycles. All applications go through update and releases. Am I right? If you are using an application that's never been updated, please put a link to that app in the chat and the super user will personally put a gold star on it. But seriously though, how far down the path of your project have you looked and thought about post go live and what needs to be done to keep your content current? As your project team is still in the active stages of implementation, now is a good time to develop relationships with the members that will be responsible for receiving notifications when a release cycle is announced. If Microsoft has a notifications channel, see if you can get added to the distribution list to receive those notifications for your application directly. If you have an internal development team or a BA team that handles change requests, buddy up to them and get added to their email blasts or team channel if they post updates there. Once you've been made aware of the updates, then you can begin the process of determining which of your materials need to be updated. As part of your arsenal of tools, it's also a good idea to ensure the applications that you are using to create materials are also up to date with the latest version. From an end user's perspective, there's nothing more discouraging than to access learning materials that are now static or out of date because no one followed through post-deployment to keep the materials current. Keep in mind that even though your implementation of the application is complete, there will always be new hires that will be accessing the learning materials. Are there any key performance indicators associated with your documentation project that includes regular audit of the materials to validate accuracy? Make keeping your content up to date one of your ongoing post-go live activities and stay connected to the team or organization that sends out those messages when the release cycles, bug fix notifications, and even customized field additions occur. As you update materials, do you keep track of the different versions? If you keep the published content stored on a shared server, if you have multiple team members working on your product, it's a good idea to have a folder structure that everyone can follow. So when edits have been completed, you can move the previous versions into a folder simply labeled old and your updated materials into a revised or a to be uploaded folder. Then devise a schedule on when you make the updates, when you review the revisions, and when you upload the revised material to the spaces or places where they will be accessible to the end users. If you use a digital adoption solution, you can also securely store your materials there as well. You can prepare a simple Excel spreadsheet with columns to keep track of the materials as you go through the review process. Or if you're comfortable using Kanban boards, set up sections or sprints to keep you and your team focused on which materials are going through your update process so there's no confusion when new requests to update materials pop up during that cycle. While implementing an application may be a waterfall, moving from one stage to another, the documentation part will be an ongoing iterative process, and keeping the material mature is another key to becoming a documentation superhero. When story and behavior are consistent, we relax. When story and behavior are inconsistent, we get tense. We have a deep psychological need for our stories and behaviors to be consistent. I normally do not like to read directly from the screen because I know you're all capable of reading it yourself. I just wanted to emphasize how truly important it is to have your materials explain the process consistently through however many different formats you build. Connect the dots for the end users so they can readily understand in whatever learning style it is that they consume the message. There is a time and a place for chaos. Having been a teacher of technology, I can say with confidence that chaos in a training environment will not foster consistent learning. If you are considering use of multiple means of delivering learning materials, try creating a storyboard. Did you ever hear the expression e pluribus unum? Out of many, one. So out of the many different types of materials that you can be creating, start with one, a storyboard. Begin your content creation with one storyboard and make that process, that message, consistent through however many formats you choose to build. Different formats and learning styles. I've mentioned learning styles repeatedly, so now let's talk about them. What are learning styles? If you like to listen to the instructor teach the lesson, You might be an auditory learner. Videos are most likely going to be the medium that you will drift towards to both visually see the process and listen to the narration of the steps. If you like to have your hands on the keyboard and keystroke the process, you might be a tactile learner. Interactive, try me type scenarios are most likely going to be the medium that you will want to use. If you like to be handed a good old hard copy Word or PDF document, you might be an independent learner. You take notes while you're in a training session, but once that session is done, you will take that step-by-step quick reference guide and review it repeatedly until you are confident that you could follow the process all on your own. If you just want to get right to working in the application, you might be an impatient learner. Kidding, not kidding. And you'll gravitate towards a speech bubble avatar type medium so you can be guided through the process and quickly grasp the concepts to master the application. Learning styles are an important consideration if you want all your end users to feel comfortable in training and learning. Cover as many styles as you can, given any time constraints. Context is king. How close to your end user's fingertips do you or can you get the learning materials? Context sensitivity helps tremendously to get rid of the "I need help now" jitters. Do you have time for building tooltips or speech bubbles to guide the end user? Is a live assistant or an avatar one of your medium templates? And if so, do you have the right application to build such a learning type? Back to Googling and Binging. If you really want to see how deep and wide the documentation template world is, now's your chance. Search for how much time is needed to create a video. Do a little math before deciding how many different templates you want to use. Your first math problem is to determine how many days do you have until your go live and how many hours per day you will be devoting to creating documentation and content. Here's a quick math fact to help you decide in just one medium alone, and that's creating a video. Research from as recent as 2019 states that the average time reported to create just 1 minute of video is 7 hours. One 5-minute video equals 35 hours of creation time, or basically one solid work week. So at least you could take an hour-long lunch break every day while you work on that one video. Be thinking about, will you have time to learn to use multiple applications or choosing a digital adoption solution that can handle them all? Standards. That's all about font type, font size, pixels, RGB colors, logo placement, screen capture sizing. The list can be lengthy. Take some time now to research, and with your team, you can decide exactly how you want the learning materials presented to your end users. Be consistent in using those standards across all the formats you choose to create. Is your business ready to go global? Will translation services be part of your formatting? Let's talk some end user numbers here. 75% of internet users prefer websites in their own language. Totally true. When you land on a web page and it's in a language that's foreign to you, what's the first thing you look for? The icon that translates that page into your native language. The next one, let's take a look. 53% of internet users are in Asia. And there are many different languages spoken throughout that part of our world. Only 26% of internet users are English speakers. Who'd have thought? 34% of all YouTube videos are in languages other than English. There are influencers out there from across the globe. There is a huge untapped market out on the internet where you can take the different materials you've created, convert them all, remember consistency, into as many languages as possible and let the world come to you. There are many translation solutions out there that are not as expensive as you might think. There are even some digital adoption solutions out there that have localization as part of their creation tools. Finally, while this last number might be small, it's only a 6, but that is 6 times more engagement when the content is localized. If you have KPIs or ROIs associated with your project, I'm sure the metrics include, is the end user adopting the application? Because in the end, user adoption is boom, drop the mic, key, and the materials you will be creating for them to consume will be critical for the successful use of your application. I hope you have found some of these tips to be useful, but before you whoosh off to create your best documentation ever, stick around for the Q&A. Hit me up in the chat with your burning questions. And again, thank you, DynamicsCon, for letting me share this time with so many of you that have attended all these great sessions.
Well, hello. Nice. So here's our Q&A session. I thank everyone for joining. I hope that you got a little value out of the session that you just saw today. And I see that we do have one visitor, Paul. I hope I've answered your question correctly. And I want to introduce Katie Savitsky. Katie is the moderator with me here today. So say hello, Katie. Let everyone know you're here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Savitsky with ClickLearn, and I am here with Christine to help you learn more about digital adoption.
So let me go ahead and see if we can answer. There were a couple of other items that didn't come through on the chat. Katie, do you see that one about the different formats?
I do. So someone asked the question here about creating multiple formats. It's totally time consuming to create training materials and learning content into multiple formats. So what are your thoughts, your suggestions to help with that?
Yeah, that was one of the big ones that a lot of people struggle with because there are so many different formats that can be created, but what really is the best way to go? So if you have time if you're already knowledgeable about the different types of applications that you would need to use to create those varied materials, you're great. But keep in mind, if you need to get up to speed with how to create using a video editor, how to create using an Adobe Acrobat type product, or even Word with doing all of the different stylizing, those different formats, it can be time consuming. So when you think about the end user and what they are going to be touching, it's all about their learning style, which helps to put your learning formats front and center for them. So when you have your materials prepared and you're able to make that consistent message, use a storyboard, something that you can create from one place or one space, and then include all of those different learning types. So for every end user that has that different, whether they like to listen and watch a video, if they like to have recorded material, such as a live assistant that can help take them through their instruction, if they have a good old Word document, and there are many people out there that would just like to print out a hard copy document, there's PowerPoint presentations. So if you want to have a full screen view of whatever that application is, you'll have that readily available. In addition to a web page that you could scroll down through a web page. And we always encourage you to find one if there's some kind of a feedback section that you can give the creator of the material some good, honest feedback about the materials that have been created for them. Does that help?
I think that does help. Thank you, Christine. What about in terms of multiple languages or, you know, translation services, anything like that?
Yeah, that's a really good one too, especially in the day and the age that we are in now, because we really have become so much of a global community. It's really critical that you try to get your materials available to whatever the native language is of the person that's going to be viewing or consuming that information. We saw one of the statistics right there at the very end of this session that said people are 6 times more able to understand what your materials are if they can see it, view it, use it in their own language. So when you think of all of the different regions of the world, that we have a variety of ways that you can take the material and convert it into those native languages. It'd be really great for you to find a digital adoption solution. And there are some out there, some really good ones out there that have that capability that you only need to create the material one time, and then you can use that digital adoption solution to replay or translate that material into as many different languages as you think your business would need in order to really help that business or to grow your business and have the population come to you once they've seen the material in their own language.
That's awesome. Thank you, Christine. We do have a couple of questions in the chat as well. Molly asked if we have more time, what else would we show? What would be the next steps?
Oh, the next steps for us would be to really, I could get in depth with a variety of different applications to be able to show or to talk about how to get your materials prepped. And that was sort of one of the first topics that we had too. So if we want to start with start back at the very beginning again, that would really be the ways to help you spark some of the creativity. If you are going to be the person responsible for creating the materials for the application, what do you do? How do you find creativity? Do you like to sit back? Do you have a whiteboard or a storyboard that you will throw some ideas up on? Do you get together, whether it's in a Teams or a Zoom meeting with your other colleagues, to go ahead and decide what type of standards do you want to have for the materials? Have you done your homework to look to see literally hour by hour or day by day, how much time do you have to create all of these different material types? So that would really be where I would go to start right back at the very beginning to show you some more.
Wonderful. And then I do see one more question from Rhonda. She asked, or she said that there are many options for tools, but do we have any favorites that we could share for creating material?
Yes, I do. My absolute favorite is going to be a product called ClickLearn. And ClickLearn is the type of digital adoption solution that has 7 different learning formats. And when you take and use a product such as a DAS, a digital adoption solution, with something like ClickLearn, you would click through your steps, capture that information one time, and then the application will go ahead and create all of those materials simultaneously. So you'll be able to see a great time savings with using products like that. If you're comfortable with using if you have already experience with other video application products, or if you have standards that you've already created templates in your Word document, certainly encourage you to use those. But if you're looking to really have everything comprehensively complete, one of the things we also talked about in this session was making sure that you have a consistent message. So if you use a product like the ClickLearn, which is a great DAS, you'll be able to capture those steps, create it into all the different learning formats. You'll be able to edit in one place, and then you'll be able to place those recorded materials into a variety of places for your end users to consume. Because a product like that is involved with the Microsoft products for all of these different areas that we've seen here with the Dynamics user groups, you'd be able to place it inside your Dynamics application. You'd be able to place it into a SharePoint site. If you have a learning management system, you'd be able to embed them there. When you're thinking about the end user, because ultimately with my little boom mic, you want to make sure that the end users are really going to be touching the application. Are your end users going to be using and adopting your application? And as the more medium that you can provide, or the mediums for them to be able to look visually, auditorily hear, see the written word, scroll through a web page, whatever the learning style is for the end user, that's where you're really going to see the rubber hit the road. And you're also going to want to capture some data analytics from that as well. So if you have an all-encompassing solution, you'll be able to use and capture those metrics. That's the kind of product that really will help you the most with being able to get that that usage from the product to the maximum.
Wonderful. Thanks, Christine. I don't see any more questions in the chat, and we are actually coming up on time. So parting words, thank you everyone for listening in, for jumping on with us and learning more about digital adoption. Yeah, Christine, is there anything additional you'd like to add?
Just like you said, Katie, thank you so much to the DynamicsCon community for allowing us to present at your special event for the last couple of days. I feel very lucky and fortunate that we were selected to be able to do it on a day such as today with St. Patrick's Day. So we're going to celebrate the win and look forward to seeing you on a channel at another session. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.